Look at the largest tree near you. It is a biological titan, a living monument weighing thousands of tons, standing 20 stories against the sky. Now look at the ground beneath it. There is no crater, there is no missing soil, there is no hole. If a creature that massive spent centuries eating the earth to grow its bones, the ground should be hollowed out. But it is not. For thousands of years, humanity assumed trees grew from the soil because that is where their roots are. We were wrong. Trees do not eat the earth. They are eating thin air. Every massive branch, every heavy trunk, and every thick root is made of captured ghosts, forged from an invisible gas floating right in front of your eyes. You are walking through the very material that builds forests, and you do not even realize it. Part 1. The atmospheric megalopolis. To understand how something so heavy is built from nothing, we must look up into the sky. The air around us feels empty, but it is a chaotic sea of floating elements. The most critical tool for life on this planet is carbon. It is the ultimate chemical building block, a universal multi-tool capable of forming complex organic structures. Yet in our atmosphere, carbon is a rare ghost. Carbon dioxide makes up a mere 0.04% of the air. That is just 425 molecules out of every million. Imagine trying to build a skyscraper when only 4 out of every 10,000 bricks are usable. To accumulate just 1 single ton of pure carbon, a tree cannot simply sit there. It must actively process, filter, and strip down over 6,000 tons of air. That is roughly 5 million cubic meters of atmosphere. To solve this logistical nightmare, trees did not just grow, they industrialized. The crown of a mature tree is not a passive cluster of leaves, it is a biological megalopolis. It is a massive, sprawling industrial park network constructed from dozens of primary branches, thousands of sub-branches, and hundreds of thousands of individual twigs. These twigs act as slow-motion sensory grids, detecting the subtle shifts of sunlight and shaping the entire architecture of the tree to hunt the sun. This vast structural grid carries up to 1 million leaves. These leaves are the specialized factory zones where the tree eats and builds. They consume extreme amounts of invisible resources from the sky, fed constantly by water pumping from the dark world below, while simultaneously altering the climate around them. When we zoom into a single leaf, the scale of this industry becomes staggering. A single leaf is composed of hundreds of millions of individual factory cells. Evolution has optimized this structure to possess the maximum possible surface area while remaining as thin as humanly possible. While human skin is hundreds of cells thick to protect us from the environment, a leaf is a masterpiece of minimalism, measuring just 10 cells from top to bottom. On the very top layer, the leaf features a single ultra-thin coat of protective, transparent skin cells. This layer acts as a glass roof, letting sunlight flood into the interior while trapping moisture inside. Directly beneath this glass roof lie rows of tightly packed factory cells, filled to the absolute brink with green chloroplasts. These are the engines that do the heavy lifting of creation. Below these factory floors, a loose, spongy layer of cells creates an open interior plaza, enabling gases to travel freely through the leaf. The entire leaf is traversed by an intricate network of vein-like superhighways. These structural pipelines carry newly minted sugars back down to the body of the tree while bringing fresh water and raw minerals up from the dark underworld. At the bottom of the leaf lies another protective layer, but this one is perforated by hundreds of thousands of microscopic mouths called stomata. Each mouth is guarded by 2 specialized cells that look remarkably like human lips, opening and closing to regulate the breath of the tree. Through these mouths, an adult tree pulls off a terrifying feat of physics. Every single day, it pulls dozens of liters of water all the way from the deep soil up into the sky. When that water reaches the leaf veins, about 95% of it is intentionally sweated out through these hundreds of billions of tiny mouths. This is not a waste of resource. It is a calculated necessity. This massive evaporation cools the delicate leaf factories, which must endure direct, scorching sunlight for 8 to 12 hours a day. It cools the air around the entire tree, surrounding the forest with an invisible protective mist. When you scale this up to a forest of billions of trees, this collective sweating becomes a global weather driver. The vapor rising from these trees is so immense that it seeds clouds and literally manufactures its own rain. The term rainforest is not a poetic description. It is a literal mechanism. Without the trees pumping this water into the sky, the vast Amazon basin would not be a lush paradise. It would be a dry, dead shrubland or a barren desert. The remaining 5% of the water is kept inside to maintain cell pressure and to power the core magical reaction of our world. Photosynthesis. Using the raw energy harvested from sunlight, the leaf factories violently split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is treated as industrial waste and ejected back into the atmosphere through the microscopic mouths. The leftover hydrogen is then forged and welded together with the carbon dioxide pulled from the air, reducing them into glucose. Glucose is a simple sugar, but it is both a highly concentrated chemical battery and a fundamental structural building block. It is the primary source of carbon for almost every complex animal on this planet. However, the story of the sky is only half the truth. To use the energy stored in this sugar, the tree must burn it, just as humans do, through a process called cellular respiration. This means that all living cells inside the tree must breathe. They suck in oxygen through their leaf mouths, through tiny cracks in the heavy bark, and even through the tips of their roots, tapping into microscopic pockets of air hidden in the dirt. This respiration runs non-stop, operating especially at night when the leaf factories shut down production. Trees actually reabsorb a significant portion of the oxygen they produce during the day, and almost all the rest is instantly used up by the microbes and creatures breathing nearby. The common myth that forests are the main lungs of the earth is scientifically incomplete. Most of the world-free oxygen actually comes from microscopic algae and cyanobacteria floating in the oceans. The trees are doing something far weirder. They are balancing an ecosystem of constant breath and hidden consumption. Part 2. The Underground Empire. To find out why the ground remains solid, we must look away from the light and descend into the second invisible crown, the underground empire of the roots. Most of the water a tree desperately needs arrives via rainfall, which primarily soaks into the topmost layers of the earth. This poses a severe geometric problem for the tree. Its massive upper crown acts as a giant umbrella, deflecting rainfall away from the center of the trunk. To survive, the roots cannot simply mimic the branches and grow downward in a mirror image. Instead, they must spread out incredibly far and wide horizontally, extending past the edge of the leafy canopy. Roughly 50% of a tree's entire root mass is packed tightly into the top 25 centimeters of soil. Instead of a neat underground reflection, the root system is a dense, tangled, chaotic mat of biological cables deeply intermingled and fused with the roots of its neighbors. Only in times of extreme, prolonged drought do specialized roots abandon this horizontal strategy and grow straight down, searching for hidden subterranean water reserves. In rare, desperate cases, these roots can drill more than 20 stories deep into the earth, though this is an exception. For most trees, the absolute boundary of their downward reach is about 7 meters. Yet, anchoring the tree and collecting water is only the baseline of the root job description. You cannot build a colossal structure out of air and water alone. Just as a modern city cannot be built from nothing but bricks, a tree requires rare, highly specific engineering materials. It needs phosphorus to construct its genetic code and DNA. It needs nitrogen to manufacture proteins and enzymes. It needs magnesium, iron, and potassium to keep its cellular machinery running. And all of these precious elements are stealthily buried in a chaotic, hostile underworld. Rocks, dry dead zones, toxic pockets, and rival root systems are scattered unpredictably throughout the soil. To navigate this shifting, dark maze, the tips of the roots evolved an incredibly specialized sensory tool called the root cap. Each individual root cap is filled with highly sensitive gravity-detecting cells. Inside these cells, tiny dense starch particles sink to the bottom like heavy pebbles settling in a glass jar of water. Because of this constant internal sinking, the root always possesses an absolute sense of down. As the root forces its way forward through the compact earth, specialized external cells detect subtle gradients of moisture, shifts in temperature, chemical signatures, and the absolute smallest acoustic vibrations caused by flowing water. This raw environmental data flows instantly into the root command center, located just millimeters behind the tip. Here, cells produce rapid electrical pulses and move transmitter chemicals across membranes. The signals from the soil are processed, interpreted, and turned into active behavioral decisions about exactly which direction to grow. A single mature tree possesses hundreds of thousands of these independent command centers, and current research suggests they actively share information with one another, operating like a decentralized intelligence network. Once a specific path has been chosen by the command center, the root deploys its frontline workers, fuzzy little drinking straws called root hairs. These hairs are loaded with specialized enzymes and transport proteins designed to soak up water and dissolved minerals. But nature does not give up its treasures easily. Many essential nutrients are locked away inside the crystalline lattices of solid rock. To break this geological vault, roots transformed into mining engineers. They navigate into the finest microscopic cracks in the stone. Once inside, the root cells intentionally fill with water and swell up like tiny high-pressure hydraulic jacks. This expansion creates an immense physical pressure, enough to mechanically crack and fracture even the hardest granite and bedrock. Next, the root tips release a highly corrosive chemical cocktail of organic acids. These acids seep deep into the fresh fractures, chemically dissolving the molecular bonds that hold the mineral nutrients in place. Before these freed nutrients can wash away or slip into the deep earth, claw-like molecules produced by the root grab them and pull them into the vascular system. The sheer sophistication of this underground mining operation is stunning, yet the reality is even wilder. Part 3. The Alliance of the Wood Wide Web. Even with an army of thousands of sensory root tips and chemical drills, a tree cannot work fast enough to sustain its massive hunger. To truly thrive, the tree had to abandon isolation and find external allies. It found them in the ancient kingdom of fungi. Beneath the forest floor lies an entity completely different from the mushrooms we see on the surface. These are the mycelial networks. The underground networks of fungi can stretch for kilometers through the dirt. The individual threads of a fungus, called hyphae, are so microscopic that they can effortlessly navigate through spaces where even the smallest root hair cannot fit, slipping precisely between single grains of soil to reach distant, isolated pockets of locked-up nutrients. But the fungi have a fatal flaw. They live in total darkness. They cannot photosynthesize. They cannot make sugar. They are starving for energy. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the roots of ancient plants and these subterranean fungi struck a profound trade alliance. The trees agreed to provide a guaranteed cut of the rich, high-energy sugars they manufactured far up in the sunlit sky. In exchange, the fungi became the extended mining network of the tree, collecting vast quantities of distant nutrients and water and delivering them directly to the root. This is not a casual interaction. It is an intimate physical integration. Some fungal species grow directly into the individual root cells of the tree, building tiny, branched structures that act as secure trade posts where sugars and minerals are actively exchanged. Other fungal species wrap themselves completely around the exterior of the root tips, weaving a dense mantle between the outer cellular layers. This mantle acts as an insulating shield, protecting the delicate growing root tissues against pathogens and hostile microorganisms. Today, this alliance is ubiquitous. There are thousands of distinct fungal trioly species, each possessing its own unique trade specialty. Some fungi are highly exclusive, partnering only with a specific species of oak or pine, while others are cosmopolitan merchants, happy to trade with almost any root they encounter. Because these fungi are non-specific, their threads do something incredible. They knit the roots of many different trees together into a vast, continuous underground network. The scale of this collaborative architecture is gigantic. In just one single cubic meter of healthy, undisturbed forest floor, the fine roots of trees can stretch for several kilometers. And for every single kilometer of root, there can be hundreds of kilometers of interwoven fungal networks. This is one of the largest, oldest, and most intricate living structures on the face of the earth. It forms a subterranean web that connects not just individual trees, but entire forest ecosystems. Through this network, resources flow from old, dying trees to young seedlings struggling in the shade. Chemical warning signals travel through the soil when an insect attack occurs, allowing neighboring trees to prepare their chemical defenses before the pests even arrive. We are only beginning to scratch the surface of how complex, dramatic, and intricate the relationships between trees, their offspring, their rivals, the soil microbes, and these fungal networks truly are. The old view of nature as a collection of isolated, competing organisms is crumbling. The more we have learned over the last few decades, the clearer one undeniable truth becomes. Trees are not solitary green poles sticking out of the mud. They are the visible anchors of an incredibly wild, deeply interconnected, and ancient intelligence, and we still have so much more to learn. The tree did not build its kingdom by devouring the world around it. It built it by capturing what was invisible and partnering with what was hidden. There is a profound architecture to this survival. When you face a shortage of resources or feel limited by your immediate environment, remember the leaf. Expand your perspective, maximize your surface area, and look to alternative sources of energy. When you find yourself blocked by an immovable obstacle, remember the root. Find the smallest crack, apply consistent internal pressure, and adapt your direction. But most importantly, remember that no titan stands alone. True resilience is not about isolation. It is about the strength of your network. Look at the relationships you are building. Are you trading value like the tree and the fungus? Or are you trying to mine a chaotic world entirely on your own? If this exploration shifted the way you look at the solid ground beneath your feet, leave a comment below with the word Netwos. Tell us what invisible connection surprised you the most, and subscribe to join us as we continue to peel back the layers of our cinematic reality.